Welcome back. It's still Good Morning Abuja, your favorite breakfast show, showing on NTA Channel 5 Abuja. Yes, we come here every morning, entertain you and keep you informed. And today is Democracy Special edition on Good Morning Abuja. And I have in the studio Barrister Samuel C. Chukwu. He is also a public speaker. I really am waiting and anxious to hear from this great public speaker. Welcome on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, we'll be talking about building a more democratic society. As you know, today is Democracy Day.
Very well, very well.
Yeah, okay, so electioneering, for everything that happens, there's usually a process, and so also elections. One of the tools to strengthen, electioneering process is one of the tools to strengthen democracy. Can you tell us how it has worked, you know, has it worked in achieving the desired goal?
Okay, once again, thank you for having me.
All right.
And the topic is talking about building a more democratic society. And the very first verb in that sentence is the word building. And when you're building something, it's a process. And the word building shows that it's meant to be a continuous process. And I appreciate the fact that many Nigerians have very high expectations. But may I remind us that our democracy is still a very young one. It's a nascent one. It's budding. If you ask me, 24 years? Yes, very well. 24 years, depending on what you're looking at. If you're looking at from a biological perspective, then a 24-year-old person is an adult. But I do not like it when people say, okay, we had independence in 1960, so a 60-year-old man. The truth is that a 60-year-old man is not a 60-year-old political process. They're two different things. Okay. They do not necessarily relate. A 24-year democracy is still young, and I'll place this in perspective. Okay. In 1776, the world's oldest democracy as it stands, that of the United States, had just begun. And 24 years after, they were still fighting wars with their colonial masters. So if we can place that in perspective, we'll see that a 24-year democracy in Nigeria is still emerging. I understand that the expectations are high, as they should be, but we should place them within reasonable bound. So that's my own take on it. Okay. Yes. Okay. So, policies and laws are important, and we can see the new Electoral Act of 2022. Right. Has it really helped? Of course, it has. Okay. It has. I can tell you, in 2007, because I love Nigeria's history a lot. Was it Bob Marley that said, "If we do not know where we're coming from, we will not know where we're going to." In 2007, then we had this transition. And Nigerians were so disinterested in the process. But as I speak to you, we hear, even the common man knows things like beavers. You hear things like biometric verification. Those terms are recent innovations. And it shows us that the political consciousness of the people is being aroused. And that's what it should be. So I can say the Electoral Act has helped. And it will continue to help as it introduces certain innovations. We're talking about building a more democratic society. Yeah. And we know that for anything to continue, like, you need to keep passing the baton to the younger generation. Do you see the young people getting more involved in politics now? Okay. And in nation building? Yes. Or we're just still laid back? That's a very good question. It's a very good question, especially when it is considered within the context of the Nigerian society. I would give one answer that has two parts. Okay. The first is the fact that, yes, young people are waking up. But you will know that for everyone who has woken up, the distance between when you leave your bed to when you go and do other things can be a strong determinant. So yes, young people are waking up, but not many have left the bed yet. As we stand, because of the Not Too Young to Run Act as it is now, the law that has been passed, many young people are waking up. For instance, I think this last election had one of the highest number of young persons trying to participate. So young people are waking up, but we cannot deny the fact that the process itself is, for instance, the cost of electioneering in Nigeria is massive. Yes. Not many young people have that capacity. And unlike in the US, where you could just get funds from various donors, in Nigeria it's a kind of patronism where, you know, you scratch my back. These are open secrets that we know about. So young people are waking up, but let's say the rate at which we're standing up from our slumber is not as quick as we should be. But I'm very hopeful. I remember it was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that said we cannot be involved in taking the drug of gradualism, where we just believe slow but steady wins the race. I think we can wake up faster. But if the question is whether young people are waking up, I can say if you go on the streets, if you go on social media, the level of political consciousness is amazing. And I want to believe it would get better.
I pray so.
So I say amen to that.
Okay. Now we know that citizens have a great role in nation building.
Very true.
What would you say is the citizens' role in building a more democratic society?
Yes, very good question. One of my favorite quotes is the quote by JFK, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, during his inauguration in 1961. Okay, I was not born then, but history.
But you read about it.
Yes,
so.
I read about it, and I watched the video clip on YouTube. He said, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. Incidentally, he was talking to Americans because that statement starts with my fellow Americans. But the beautiful thing about historical facts is that some of them can be transmuted into other contexts. Citizens have a role to play by what we call civic responsibility. The holding of the government to its point of accountability is a collective responsibility that should be shared. Citizens should learn to ask questions of government and not accept certain things hook, line, and sinker. Of course, when you ask questions, we're not asking that you ask violent questions. You could hold the government accountable. Secondly, citizens can play a role in building strong institutions. For instance, we have CSOs, civil society organizations. Those are formed by citizens. They serve as watchdog in the democratic process. Thirdly, there's a more nuanced part. Whenever someone goes into government, his people rejoice because they feel it's our own turn to eat. Sorry about our own turn, I mean, no pun intended. So, but citizens have a role to play an ethical responsibility. Expect good standards from these people. Don't say, oh, he was there, it's now our turn to eat, and he's not yet doing what he should do. Citizens should play that ethical responsibility to enable that political office holders are held accountable. Then last but not the least, I believe in the supernatural, I believe in God, I believe all things are possible. Citizens should pray for their leaders. Pray for their leaders and pray for Nigeria, because Nigeria is a ship that we all are on or in. If we do not pray and do what we should and this ship sinks, we all may go down with it. But I say God forbid to that.
Amen. So, how is Nigeria's political landscape currently structured? Because, you know, most of us, we just know, oh, okay, there's the judiciary, there's the legislative, but, you know, we do not know the nitty-gritty. We don't know past that. And what are the rules of the various institutions and the actors involved in a democratic process?
Okay, so these are 3 questions in one. Let me see how I can take all of them all at once. So Nigeria practices what is called a republican system of government. Yes, which is an aspect of representative democracy. And when you say something is republican, it means, one, there's no monarch, there's no king. You know, when in 1963 we became a republic, the sovereign head of the UK stopped being our own sovereign head. So we graduated from the governor general system into the presidential system of government. So there are 3 arms of government. We have the executive, of course in the constitution, you have the executive in section 5, the legislature in section 4, judiciary in section 6.
At least they teach us that one in secondary school.
Very well.
Like they keep.
3 arms of government. I think every citizen should know that. Yes. So these arms have their roles to play. Of course, of all of them, the executive is the strongest because it has various organizations, various agencies, MDAs as we call them, ministries, departments, and agencies. But the problem in Nigeria is that we overemphasize the role of the executive at the expense of the other parts. For instance, in America, the strongest arm is the legislature because it believes it is the representative of the people. That is why if you watch on certain foreign TV stations, when they're having Senate hearings, everyone is watching because they believe that they are the ones involved in that process. But then again, we cannot forget the judiciary. The judiciary plays a major role in democracy because the truth is, Lord Acton, the British philosopher, said power tends to corrupt and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So it's the judiciary that ensures that power should not be absolute. Let me, there's a word of a philosopher that mentioned the fact that in America, the Constitution of America was made seeing the president as a bad man that needs to be checked. But the Constitution of Nigeria was made seeing the president as a good man that should have all powers.
The powers.
And that's why you see there are a lot of powers centered on the executive. I think that can be corrected because no democracy can survive without checks and balances. So that's how those institutions play their role in democracy.
Okay. Now it's time for us to go in very few words. What is your message to the Nigerian youth out there?
Okay. Well, my message to the Nigerian youth is this. If we keep on focusing on what is not right, then we would feel so depressed that we would leave fate as it should be. But I am a die-hard optimist. I believe we can still make good use of what we have. The truth is this, it's not what we have that does not limit us. It is what we have but we do not know how to use. So my fellow Nigerian youths, ask not what Nigeria can do for you, but ask what you can do for Nigeria.
Wow, I loved that ending. It was a beautiful one. Thank you for coming on our program. Good morning, Abuja. Thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you.
I have been conversing with Barrister Samuel C. Chukwu, and wow, the young man is loaded. Ask what your country can do for you, Nigeria, but what you can do for our beloved country. Well, good morning, Abuja will continue with personality of the week. Who knows Michael Akinkumi? Do you remember what he did for Nigeria? Let's find out.